John, you know, like what I'm finding absolutely fascinating here is the way in which she's almost been excused. It feels like mostly peaceful plagiarism here is the way the media has been covering it. But what I want to ask you about, though, is I think back in 2006, Larry Summers was president of Harvard. He was a distinguished scholar, a distinguished economist, former Secretary of the Treasury, former chief economist, I think, at the World Bank. Author of a number of books, papers, hugely distinguished career. He was summarily discharged because he gave a speech in which he suggested that there may be differences in the structure of male and female brains, which explain why some go into some areas and some others. He was roundly criticized, cashiered by Harvard. This here, as you say, Claudine Gay, not much chop of an academic, and she's allowed to stay. How does Harvard have any credibility anymore? And what is the end game for Harvard if it is just, how does it continue to attract and remain a credentialing institution if its sole credential is DEI nonsense?
Well, James, you're absolutely right. The difference between Larry Summers and Claudine Gay is ideology. Larry Summers didn't toe the left-wing line. Claudine Gay, even though she's not much of an academic, does toe the left-wing line. You ask a great question, though. Harvard has said that it is going to stop taking SAT scores from high school student applicants. So how is it going to pick a freshman class if it doesn't use the SATs? And almost every senior in high school in America has a 4.0 grade average, you know? It's going to choose them according to essays they write, and they're going to judge those essays based on how closely they hew to the DEI line. And I think that where that leads, James, is to a steep decline in Harvard's prestige.
100%, Liz.
Absolutely. John, this week we learned that the Democrat mayor in Boston has sent out an email inviting people to a Christmas party unless you're white. 15 minutes later, she sent out another very hurried email, not to apologize for her segregation party, but to apologize for the fact that it was accidentally sent to some whites.
Yeah, it's a revealing story, Liz. I mean, the Boston City Council has 7 white members and 6 members of color, as they say. And Michelle Wu only intended to invite the 6 members of color to a bigger party that she was having at a city facility for what they call electeds of color. And she accidentally invited the white people that had to back off and say, well, sorry, you're not invited after all. But again, there's a bigger story here. Some people in defending this said, well, this is nothing new. This group called the Electeds of Color has been around for more than a decade. And they have all kinds of events, you know, for electeds of color. This is just one of them. And there's a couple of things about that. Number one, I'm not sure why anybody would want to have a Christmas party that is racially segregated. That just seems like a very strange thing to do. But the second thing, Liz, is that we are seeing increasing acceptance of segregation in the United States. We see it in instances like this. We see it in universities having segregated dormitories, segregated commencement ceremonies. It's just astonishing, you know, for somebody who lived through the entire era of integration.
John Hinderaker, always great to chat to you. I hope that there will be plenty of coloureds and whites Christmas parties that you'll be attending there in the States. But in the meantime, a very Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you so much for coming on during the year, and we'll see you again next year, John. And as I said, I'm not going to say the American Happy Holidays because I hate that. Have a very Merry Christmas, John Hinderaker from Outsiders. Thanks, mate.